Economics for Form 1. So we are now on Lesson 6, Types and Stages of Production. Types and Stages of Production. Production comprises of activities which provide commodities to satisfy wants. That's all the activities we carry out in order to satisfy wants. We call them altogether production. So it means that anything that we do in terms of, and we know that the wants could be in terms of a service or a good, that's commodities. I mean, the wants, could be satisfied through the supply of commodities, which could be a good, the consumption of a good or a service. Now, these activities, that is, which we put into production, these activities lead to the satisfaction of physical and social wants. So wants could be physical. If you drink water because you are thirsty, if you eat because you are hungry, you are eating, satisfying a physical want. Well, you know, social wants like supplying a health center, supplying water, supplying some other thing, those can be considered as social wants. Production is complete when the distribution process has taken the commodity to the consumer, which means that when you produce, the idea is not just coming out with something and keeping it there. The idea is that you are producing because you want your commodity to be consumed. So production is only complete when the good is accepted by the consumer. So if we want to look at types of production, you will see actually two main types of production: direct production and indirect production. Well, with direct production, we've just shown you a small picture here. You can look at this backyard inside somebody's fence. He has this plantain tree and maybe a yam by the side, a yam stalk. So these are all things that he's producing just for his household, just to give some food to his home. So that is direct production. So this is just an example. It's just an example. So the direct production actually is when we produce for personal satisfaction. So when we produce for personal satisfaction, we call it direct production. You understand? So the aim of production is not for the market, but to satisfy our personal wants. You know, our personal wants could stretch to the wants of our small family around us. So this is common. I mean, direct production is common in the case of subsistence farming, where you see our mothers go to the farm, they work hard to produce maize, only to come and prepare corn fufu for us, produce yams just to come and feed the family. So that is direct production. It is also common in the case of gardening, like even in Europe, you see most families have a small garden behind the house so that they get the garden products for the kitchen. It is not for sale. Then you have other chores around the house because, as we say, you produce to satisfy your own needs. For example, a woman who makes her own clothes and her children's clothes, repairs her own shoes, it means that she's not using the service of any other person, she's just doing the work for herself. So, and that is why in the case of direct production, we do not actually consider, it limits completely the division of labor. You have one person doing virtually everything, so division of labor hardly comes in this case. Now, if we look at indirect production, Indirect production. In this case, you produce for the market and can only take care of your household and yourself from your proceeds from sales or other income. You see, what you produce is not for your family, it's for the market. You sell it. And then when the income comes in, you start seeing what you can do about your family. So you use money now to buy their needs. You see, we have clear examples like the case of the cocoa farmers and the coffee producers. I mean, who in Cameroon eats his coffee or cocoa? You know, most of us, our cocoa farmers, that's why they call these cash crops. When they produce the cocoa and the coffee, they sell it. The cocoa and the coffee are called cash crops because they sell it all out for cash. So that is an aspect of indirect production. So after selling out for cash, you now have an income. You are paid for selling your cocoa or your coffee. So you now have an income which you use to acquire your needs. So this may be a simple way of presenting indirect production. Indirect production does not simply mean say, producing cash crops and selling. It looks at all other forms of production where you are not producing directly for yourself. We can look at a mother who gets up in the morning and bakes a bit of cake or bread for her children and herself. That is direct production. But if you go to a bakery where there are lots of employees all putting in their own form of labor, that is indirect production. If you go to a brewery where they're making beer or sugar factories and so on, there you will find indirect production. And that is why in indirect production goes with a certain scale of production, a certain scale in production. You know, when you have direct production, the scale is normally very small. It's very small, and it is often just one person working on his farm, or mending his shoes, or making his clothes. In the case of indirect production, you often have a scale, you have several persons, so there is some form of division of labor. One person is doing one thing, the other person is doing another. Then you have specialization until people specialize in certain aspects. You could take even a small seamstress factory or tailoring factory. Somebody specializes in putting on the buttons, the other one specializes in cutting the cloth, another one sews, and all of that. So that is what we have there. Now, in production, we have certain structures or stages which we should also consider. Yes, we should consider. And they normally talk about 3, but a 4th is being considered by most economists. So most economists consider a 4th option in the stages of production. Now, the first stage is called primary production. The second is secondary production. The third is tertiary production. And what most economists are considering now is generally known as quaternary sector. It's a quaternary sector. You know, each stage of production comprises a sector. Now, let's start with primary production. Primary production. This is considered as the extractive or primary industries and mainly concern the extraction of raw materials. So we have seen it, the extractive or primary industries. They call them primary industries because they mainly concentrate on the extraction of raw materials. So, you know, with extraction, it means that we are getting most of these things from land, from natural resources. And in this case, we consider mainly mining, farming, fishing, and production of primary products as a whole. Of course, we know that if we want to look at primary products, we could, from mining, we get iron ore, bauxite, and various types of ores from which we now produce other things. So at this level of mining, which is a primary level, primary production, we are getting the primary products. So I have said from mining we can get ore, iron ore, bauxite, and other things from mining. We can get crude oil, crude oil, which is used for making petrol and kerosene and so on. And then apart from ore, we could look at timber from the forest. What we do now is when we get the timber out, that's a primary product. When we get cotton from our cotton plantations, that's a primary product. Palm nuts from our palm nut plantations, these are all primary products. Now, when we take these primary products, what do we do with them? They are still at the primary level. Some of them can be used like that. I mean, in the old days, but very few. These primary products are still supposed to be called raw materials. They're still raw. So the secondary products or secondary production involves transforming these primary products into finished products. We transform these primary products into finished products. So we talked about mining, where our primary products were iron ore or bauxite. When we transform bauxite into aluminium, or we take iron already into steel, iron ore into steel, we are already at the secondary level, although we can still use the products from there to continue and make other finished products. So, but secondary production now is we're transforming these primary products that we mentioned at point one. We're transforming timber into plank and other things, into wood, wooden furniture, etc. We're transforming palm nuts into palm oil. You understand? Transforming cotton into cloth. And at this stage, it is not only that type of transformation, we also look at the construction industry, like building construction. We use sand, which comes from quarries, that is primary production in the building construction industries. Vehicle assemblies, we still use steel and iron from primary production. We go into food processing. We transform fruits, which is primary production, into fruit juice. You can go to the breweries where we transform corn, barley, hops into beer, and we have lots of forms of manufacture. Now, the tertiary production, this is a sector that comes up because it is a stage which we get to as virtually the last stage. We extract before we get the primary products. We are actually, either it is agricultural extraction, mining, or whatever. And then we process, that is the secondary stage, where we do production to get the finished product. After we have the finished product, what do we do with it? It has to be consumed. It has to be consumed. So it goes back to that our definition of economics. How can it be consumed? What has been produced should be made available to the consumer through distribution. So the tertiary product is mainly about this. call them distributive industries. That is, these are the people who do adverts, marketing, financing, and lots of other things so that the goods get to the consumer. Well, at this stage, we also add most of the services, and because some of these services are the ones that enable us to get to the consumer, like transportation, banking, then we have other services like teaching, and so on. Now, with the new developments in the world today, IT technology and so on, some economists still think that a fourth sector exists. A fourth sector. Others call it a special tertiary sector. A special tertiary sector. In this case, what do we consider? The quaternary sector, as they call it. If you look at aspects like research, if we take the drug industry, medicines, there is a lot of research which goes in before the medicines are produced. And now, how would you place it? You cannot call it primary production. They are not extracting anything from anywhere at that level. You cannot call it secondary production. They are not transforming or producing. They are not transforming anything at that level. You cannot call it tertiary production. There is no good yet to distribute or service to render. So what they are doing is, before any medicine is produced, there's a lot of research where they spend a lot of money and do a lot of work. Now, after you have produced, you have aspects of administration and management, which you could talk about financial management, accountancy, and so on. These are all things that some people believe should be placed in a special tertiary stage. That it should be placed in a special tertiary stage. So I would like you to read Economics Beginner's Companion to get more info.